Good morning. It's Make It Happen Monday. It's 9 a.m. and I'm here most Mondays supporting you to achieve success without stress by asking questions and sharing what works for others. So it's all about actually finding out what are those inside stories, what's happening on the inside when people are being successful on the outside. So good morning. Hope you're having we've had a great weekend and you're all ready for the week ahead. And I'm trying to turn the banner off and I can't, I'm pressing the wrong button. Let's do that. Good morning, those that don't know me. I'm Cheryl Andrews. I'm also known as the Listening Detective, and I like to ask questions and listen to help other people get clarity of what they want and the confidence to make it happen. However, if you've been trying, and maybe you've asked and you've talked to lots and lots of people, it can be really, really challenging to have the courage to try again. But when failing is not an option, when you have to find a way to make it work, if your business depends on you being successful because you need to feed your family, keep the roof over your head, then you have to dig deep and you have to find that courage to keep going. And I want to talk today about some of those strategies that work for me, but also what I've seen work for clients as well. So one of the things, just about a bit of context, probably one of the hardest things is when maybe you've hired a coach before, maybe you've gone to a counsellor, maybe you've talked to friends, maybe you've talked to business networking buddies, maybe you've been talking, but nothing seems to change. The likelihood is it's the kind of the listening that you're having. It may be that what worked back then, and then the other thing I've heard somebody say recently is about, but the thing that it wasn't permanent, it wasn't sticky. So the thing to say about us human beings is we are cyclical. We tend to go through cycles, and we are pattern spotting beings, and we tend to operate have our own unique processes, our own patterns. And what can happen is when we see a behavior repeating, we feel like whatever we did before was a failure, instead of perhaps identifying what has changed since then. So put this into a bit of context. Let's say you've noticed that you're being really critical of yourself and you're giving yourself a hard time and you're feeling really low and your self-esteem is low, and you go to a counsellor. A counsellor will give you space and time to be heard and give you time to talk about what's not working, what hasn't worked, what didn't work in the past. And quite often, just having our story, our current experience, our past experience heard and witnessed is enough for us to let the story go and then take action. But then what happens is, something else happens in life and we might get a similar feeling of, feeling a bit low, feel like we're not getting anywhere, feel like, it's a bit, things aren't quite right. And then we might then think, well, there's no point going to counselling because it didn't work, because last time I did it, it didn't work. But what if that's all you do need is someone to talk to about the story, to actually to acknowledge that something isn't working. And as soon as you vent what's not working, you let it go and then you take action. And this is when I talk to my clients about your chatting with purpose. When someone chats to a coach, the purpose for chatting is to get clarity of what you want and the confidence to make it happen. And often the coach's job is to help you to identify when change is happening so that you keep motivated to keep taking action if the change is going to take time, it's going to be over a period of time. So the purpose for chatting isn't just for venting. You're going to acknowledge a story, you're going to acknowledge what's happening, maybe even talk about how you're feeling. But the questions are going to direct your attention on what you want and what is working or what has worked. But even then, if you have coaching, you might need coaching again. And what I want to really sort of talk about now is that sometimes the help that we've asked for was exactly the right help in that moment. And that even if we need help again, it doesn't mean that the help we had before wasn't the right help, if that makes any sense. So it's a bit like your cleaner. You might get a quick cleaner that comes in and cleans your house and it's absolutely great and immaculate, but it doesn't stay clean unless you keep cleaning it. So a bit like the counselling, the coaching, etc., you will often need to be heard, to be understood, and to have questions that guide your attention, train your attention on what you want, what is working, and what has changed or what is changing in order to maintain motivated action. And so it might be that the kind of listening you needed 10 years ago is different to what you need now, or it just might be the frequency you need it. So a good example this week with a client is some clients work with me. So a client I was working with recently, they were going through a transition period. So we did a 3-month program, and we were emailing once a week. We had sessions once a fortnight. It was very, very concentrated, very focused, because there was a finite thing that they wanted. There was some change they were going through that they wanted support to get through that period of time. As soon as that period of time was gone, they now don't want emails every week. They just want to book sessions every now and again with me, because they just want to keep checking on their clarity. They knew there wasn't a large amount of change going on. Good morning, whoever's joining me, please join me today. Say hello. We're just about the courage to ask for help again. Hi, Loretta. And we're just talking about, you might have had help before, and you might think because you need help again that the help you had before wasn't correct. And then you get into a bind of not wanting to ask for help. And when you absolutely know that you have to, you have to find a way of making things work because failing isn't an option, it can take huge amounts of courage to try again. So I want to talk today about the 3 steps that I use. And that is, first of all, it's curiosity. So it's being curious. When you are talking to yourself or other people about what's happening for you, are you talking about what you want, or are you talking about what you don't want? So sometimes part of the process to get from where you are now to where you want to be is we do need to vent what isn't working, what hasn't worked. We have to have our emotions acknowledged. We need to be able to express how we feel. And for some people, having a space just to go, do you know what? I'm really sad. So a great example this week, as clients working with recently, what she discovered is that there was something that she was looking forward to that she was really, really excited about, but it also meant that something was going to change. So she was also equally sad. And she was confused by the fact that she was sad and excited about the same thing. And one of the challenges with us human beings is that we can have conflicting emotions. We can be really, really motivated and excited about the future of the thing that's going to happen as a result of the change, but we can equally be sad that we're losing parts of, something's going to change. So people, ending a contract. I've had clients in the last couple of months who don't want to work with me so often, and it's absolutely the right thing for them. But I get a bit sad sometimes. I get to the point where I won't hear their success stories. I won't hear what's going on in their life. I won't be able to keep in touch. I won't get to hear their stories. And so I have to be okay with the fact I'm very excited that they're independent and they're able to do what they want to do and they don't need my support. But equally, I'm like, I won't hear about what's going on. So yeah, moving house, is a classic example, isn't it? It's something if you've chosen, whether you've been. I had a recent experience with somebody who was, their landlord just gave them notice that they had to move. They didn't choose to move. So whether you've chosen to move or you haven't chosen to move, the whole thing about moving house is you're going to have, you've got the excitement. Some people call it excitement and the anticipation or the fear of the new space. And then there'll be the joy of letting go if you haven't really liked where you were, or the sadness of letting go of where you are. But even if you absolutely loved living where you were, there may become, just because it's the ending of something, it's the end of an era, it's an end of a phase. I remember when I moved out of my last property, I've been in this one 24 years now, so the other one I was in for 9 years. I remember it's absolutely the right thing to do, but it was sad, to think that I'll never walk in that door again or never go around that building again. And so learning for me has been, part of the process has been learning to be okay with that letting go part of the process. So going back to the 3 steps, is that the first thing is clarity, is actually really understanding what you want to have happen, understanding why you want it and who you want it for. People who are more motivated and have the courage to try again, often they're making what I call a purpose-driven decision. So they know what they're working away from, and they know what they're working towards, and they know the ripple effect of the decision, the impact it's going to have on them, their family, their business, and therefore the impact it can have on their community, their country, their world. So they know the impact of taking action, but they also know the impact of not taking action. So for me, to have the courage to try again, I have to really make sure, if just thinking about what I want to have happen isn't enough for me to get on and do it, then I have to look at the impact of not taking action and the impact of taking action on the people and the things that really matter to me. So that's the first thing, is get clarity of what you want. And when you listen to the story that you're telling yourself, make sure you're talking about what you want rather than what you don't want. Getting help, or even just changing, helping yourself, your own brain and other people's brains find it very difficult to listen when you're talking about what you don't want. Second thing is to get confidence in the process. The biggest reason why we lose courage is because we don't actually know what to do next. We know what we want, but we don't know what the first step is, or we don't know what the next step is. And if the thing that we're trying to change or we're doing is, moving house is quite a massive task. Thanks for sharing that, Loretta. Is that it's a massive task. So, moving house just sounds like, one thing, doesn't it? But actually there's a whole load of, maybe it's removal men or packing up the boxes, or maybe then you want to make sure you're going to use this time to get rid of stuff so you don't take a load of rubbish with you. So then you have to go through each, individual room, and there's a whole load of decisions got to be made on how you're going to decide what you're going to keep, what you're going to let go of. Then if you get into the whole environmentally friendly stuff, where you want to do the right thing by the planet and you don't want to just put things in landfill, then you have to choose where you're going to put the rubbish, what's your rubbish, what you're getting rid of, where are you going to take it to, when are they available. And then what seemed to be a very simple problem to solve, ends up, you realize, oh, that's why it's so complex. And when you get right down to the detail, whether you're talking about physical stuff like moving house, thank you so much for bringing that to the call today, Loretta. It's really helpful for me. Whether you're talking about moving house, which has got physical stuff, or you're talking about your emotional stuff, your emotional baggage, if you like, whatever metaphor you want to use for it. But each time, if you're holding on to a story or a belief or a thought, like you do with your physical stuff, you have to unpack them and go, okay, does this thought serve me? Does this item serve me? Does it bring me joy? Does it make me things better? Or, what's the purpose of holding on to this? And I know for me, I had quite a lot of stuff around the house that was reminding me of my mum. Now, my mum died 16 years ago. So there's lots of stuff that's around that reminds me of her. And I'm okay with it being there because I know that's what the purpose of it is. But often we hold on to stuff metaphorically and physically without consciously deciding why we're doing it. And we don't check in with it. Does this thing bring me joy? Do I love it? Does it serve a purpose? Whether I use it once a year or once every 5 years or every single day, perhaps the frequency it gets used isn't as important as does it get used? Is it valued? Is it got a purpose? And often we hang on to stuff, both in our belief system, our thoughts, our beliefs, our story, because it's familiar and we might need it or might want it, or it's just part of who we were, it's part of our identity. So learning to let go of stuff is part of the clarity process. Those who know that read Manage Your Critic from Overwhelmed to Clarity, you'll know that the first step is curiosity. Then we're looking at the language, what word you're using, but the why at the end is you, your story, and you matter. And it's just making sure the story that you're telling yourself absolutely serves you. So confidence comes from knowing, what is the process you're going to go through. And actually, sometimes processes are quite complex and you'll start to find little bottlenecks in the process where, I know for me, I used to be really, really good at decluttering, right? Both my mind and my physical space. Partly because I just didn't do so much work during the school holidays, but I didn't have money to take my children away. So often I was at home every half term and every school holidays. And one of the jobs I used to do was declutter. So I did it on a regular basis. When I went back to when my children had left home and didn't need me, and I now worked more hours, unknowingly, I'd lost that space in my diary to check in and actually declutter the house. I've also seen myself do that with myself mentally, where my diary got really busy and the minute I finished work, I go and, doing something with the family or my husband or friends. And there was never any space to just, check in with myself and think, what am I taking forward to the next interaction in my life? And is there anything I want to let go of? I didn't give myself time to reflect. So confidence will often come from knowing the purpose for doing something and giving yourself evidence-based feedback. What works about this, what doesn't work about it, what could work better, and consciously choosing to let go of stuff that doesn't serve you and understanding the series of actions that needs to happen between where you are now and where you need to be, and knowing where there may be some, like what I call bottlenecks, where maybe you have to decide. Before, I would just get rid of stuff when I was moving house or decluttering or stuff, I had no problem. I just bin it. I'd be okay with the fact that if I get rid of it, I get rid of it. But now, because I've got to try and actually put it in a really resourceful place, get rid of it conscientiously, it slows my process down. But it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's just that I have to go through a bit more of a meticulous process in order to work out where I'm going to send the stuff, and be more thoughtful actually about what I buy in, because I'm now having to I can't get rid of stuff as quickly as I used to. So that's the confidence part of the process. Lorette's to put, moved 16 months ago and still can't find anything. Well, I know we've talked about lots of different things, Loretta, and it'd be interesting to know whether that's representative of, if your outside world is representing your inside world as well, because one of the things I've learned over the years is when we work in metaphors and we use metaphors to understand ourselves, then we can actually make the complex easier to understand. And often when we declutter the external world, when we get rid of stuff that doesn't serve us, it can leave us with this sort of light feeling. And equally, when we get rid of stuff that's inside us that doesn't serve us, that can equally give us that light feeling. So step number 3 is change. Is really checking in with yourself. Your relationship with change is like what, or change for you is like what. Understanding your own process and how you manage change. Now, it took me a long while to realise that the first thing for me that has to happen is I have to be conscious that change is happening. I know that when I feel like things are not working, and I'm talking about what's not working, and I'm feeling like I haven't got the energy to try again, I don't want to start again, there's quite likely that something has changed. Like I've got busy and I've stopped reflecting, or I've got, my children left home and I stopped taking the school holidays off, and by default and not consciously deciding to do it, I stopped doing the decluttering as often. So when I did have to do it, it felt like such a big job. It's like I had the whole house to do. Whereas actually, when I did it every 6 weeks, I just chose a drawer or a cupboard or a room, and I just had a declutter day. And I just did it on a regular basis. So it never really built up. But unknown to me, I wasn't even conscious that I changed how I was using my time before I realised I was stuck and things weren't working. So Loretta's put, I hate change. So just going back to what we just talked about is just thinking about, how does that story serve you? When your narrative to yourself is, I hate change, just notice, does that work for you? How does that serve you? Because, what's the purpose of that? Because the reality is change is happening all the time, whether we like it or not. The weather changes, the seasons change, the cells in our body are changing. What we like, what we don't like, all of that change is a constant state. The one thing that's guaranteed in life is change. It's going to happen. And some of it's going to be change that you create for yourself. Some of it's change that's imposed on you. And so understanding your relationship with change and understanding the impact of change on you, then add into that the fact your own brain, the mammalian part of the brain, is a pattern spotting mechanism. It likes problems to solve. So it's looking for things that change, and then it likes to track and go, oh, that's happened once, that's happened twice, that's happened, oh, there's a pattern. But if nothing changes at all, the mammalian part of the brain gets bored. It's like, and so we can start creating problems for ourselves, and we can start making up stuff to focus on, to create problems to solve, because the brain likes to be solving problems. So remembering that the brain itself is in conflict. If there's too much change going on and it can't predict the patterns, it starts to feel that it can't keep you safe. But equally, if there's not enough change, it gets bored, restless, that feeling when you're unsettled and feel like you don't feel very fulfilled. Quite often, the irony of it is that the reason we feel like that is because there's not enough change, or we're not being stretched outside of our comfort zones. We're not getting enough learning. There's not enough stimuli. And so the actual brain is going, well, there's nothing new happening. This is boring. And so it's actually because we need more change rather than we need less change. And so finding out where you are with change itself. So the reason why it takes so much courage is sometimes, we've had a lot of change imposed on us, and then we have to do more change. And the timing of it isn't great. And that's why actually making sure you've got the right support in place Now, sometimes all we need in order to get through change, or to embrace change, or to love change, or to have a better relationship with change, is to go back through those first two steps, get clarity of what you want to change. And secondly, get confident in the process. What happens between where you are now and where you want to be? And then lastly, thinking about what support or resource you might need to go through the change itself. And quite often people find change difficult and they find it hard when you've tried to do something and it didn't work. Then it feels like a failing, rather than being able to really change, notice what has changed. Maybe what you've just discovered is what doesn't work for you. So sometimes you try counselling or coaching, go back to what we started at the beginning of the video, you might try a certain kind of listening and it might not work for you. But what I will encourage you to do right now, if you've tried some kind of talking support and you've talked to a counsellor or a coach or a therapist or a friend or whatever, please bear this in mind. Okay, you could talk to 5 different clean language facilitators who coach in the same process that I do, and one of us would work for you and the other one wouldn't. And it could be as simple as the pitch of our voice, how fast we talk, our accent. It could even be, the tone of our voice. There could be something about the way that we talk that really resonates with your system, that helps you to access the information you want within, whereas with somebody else it doesn't. So I really encourage you, rather than thinking that coaching, doesn't work for you, or thinking that listening, therapies don't work for you, be mindful that it might be just the individual, it might be just literally the personality, and it could be timing. Maybe what didn't work for you before might work for you now. And so sometimes it's worth trying things again and then really paying attention to what worked about it, what didn't work, what could have worked better, to help you make an informed next step. Loretta's got that, makes sense for her. Thank you. So one of the things I do when I go through my own change process is, first of all, I have to be, it spells change. Anyone that knows me, I like to spell the words out. So first thing I have to do is be conscious that change is happening, or be conscious that I want change to happen, and own the fact that something's got to change. And I will then go through and get clarity of what kind of change do I want and what's the process to get me from where I am now to where I want to be. And the other thing I need to do is have honest and really helpful conversations. And sometimes I need to be able to talk to somebody who isn't going to coach me, who isn't going to ask me questions, who isn't going to give me an opinion or a suggestion. In fact, they aren't really going to say very much. They're just going to listen, like literally just honour and witness it. Sometimes I just need to be able to vent how frustrated I am that I've got to do it again. It can be just really, really frustrated. Sometimes I just need to voice my anger, my frustration, my narkiness, that I've got to do it, because it allows me to express and expel, if you like, get out the sort of tension in my body that's being caused by the fact that I've got to do this again, that I've got to repeat the process. It hasn't worked. The other thing is accepting that which I cannot change. There are some things that, that I'm not in control of. What other people think, what other people do, I can't change that. But what I can change is how I think and feel and respond to that. So there is a thing about accepting that which I cannot change, and accepting what is. Sometimes I can't have what I really want. And therefore I have to go, well, given I can't have what I want, what would I like to have happen, and get myself back to what I actually want. The other thing for me about change is nurturing the negative niggles. I often work with people that go, I just got this feeling. A number of the clients I worked with over last week on the retreat, they were sort of like they had a sort of a pain in the chest, or this unsettled feeling, or this niggle. I call it nurturing the negative niggles. But sometimes when you just don't have words to describe how you feel, but you've just got this feeling, this sensation, taking time to just... Yesterday was a classic example with my husband. I felt a bit low, felt a bit fed up. And I was just reading off all of the part conversations I'd had that week with, somebody had emailed me, hadn't replied back yet, or I needed to reply back to them, or somebody had said that. And I was like, oh, no wonder. So when I call nurturing the niggles, it's like sometimes I've done it with my coach, and I've filled out 7 of these flip charts sheets all along the hallway, all with post-it notes of everything that was in my head. This is bothering me. This is bothering me. This is bothering me. Very pleased to say there was only 5 or 6 things yesterday. But usually if I'm feeling like, ugh, there's probably a load of niggles. You know, I've just been busy and there's what I call a load of open loops. So things have been started. Maybe somebody said something or I've thought something, but I haven't actually yet got to the point where I've made a decision what I'm going to do about them. And if lots of those build up in my system, then my mammalian brain has got a whole load of things it's trying to track, and it's very difficult for it to know what's going to happen next. So I know for me, to nurture my negative niggles, I have to stop and actually just write it all up and acknowledge, or talk to somebody about all the things that are niggling me. And sometimes just acknowledging, like, oh, no wonder I've got loads going on in my head, right? And actually what I did yesterday is I just went and lay down for 10 minutes just to sit with all those emotions and allow them to have some space and time to settle. The G in the change process for me is growth. That change means growth. And when we've got an attitude that, you know, if we're trying to stay the same, it's almost like it's not humanly possible. That's not what we're about. Humans are designed to grow, to learn, to evolve. And being okay with the fact that even if change is uncomfortable, even if there's loads of negative niggles, even though I've got to have these honest conversations, even though I have to accept the stuff I can't have, you know, that actually the fact that I'm experiencing this discomfort means that there's pretty darn sure that if I look at it from a place of learning and a place of growth, there is going to be some growth that's going to come from it. I'm going to get some, you know, I'm going to develop as a person. I'm going to get more self-aware. So actually really owning and embracing that whilst this may not be comfortable right now, growth is going to come from it. And therefore, on the other side of this, there is going to be something to celebrate. There is going to be some more confidence, because often people try and wait till they're confident before they go through the change, where actually they have to go through the change to get the confidence. So remembering and reminding myself as I go through change that actually, you know, there is growth in it. And the last one is that the E is to embed and embrace the change. So what I've been known for me is becoming more conscious of the change, which starts with a C, but really embracing it and really loving change. So we're starting back to what you said, Loretta, about, you know, if we've got a story of we hate change, then our system will believe us. And that every time it notices any change, it's got a risk of putting us into flight, or freeze. We're going to feel that we can't do it. Whereas actually, if we start noticing, oh, I've changed this, or I've changed that, or that changed and I was okay with it. It's like really, really embracing the change that happens in our life. Then our system starts to recognize that we're okay with change, and change is fine, and that we're okay the other side of it. So recognizing when change is happening and really embracing it. My clients will know that I get people to really celebrate it, no matter how small it is, because the more you can update your system, the easier it is for your system to feel settled with that. And then if you're going through changes, then the S stands for support. Just seeing here, Jenny's got, I've just been having this conversation, a fit of a coaching relationship is so important. Absolutely, Jenny. And I think it's really tough, because you might try a coach and you think you might then eliminate that coaching doesn't work. Had a great conversation with somebody this week who really, doing my 3-month program absolutely didn't work for them. And so they've had they'll do, just short bursts of stuff. I've had clients who just want to work with me on a power hour. They don't want me to email them in between. I like to think that one of the things that works about the way I work is I'm listening to the support they want. And even though sometimes I'm like, I don't get to hear what's going on in their lives, it's not me at my best coaching, if you like, or actually, no, it's not in my favorite coaching, but I'm happy to be flexible, because I know that what we need in terms of support from our coaches changes. And I've had clients work with me for 3 or 4 years, and they've had email accountability. Some of them only have email coaching from me now. They just get an email once a week, because they don't need to hear or talk to me. They just need the questions in an email to remind them to train their attention. And then we're always checking in and reviewing what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes I stop being the right coach for somebody. And that's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine that change happens. Tina's got, honest and helpful conversations are so supportive, being able to be authentic and that be okay. I'm going to come back, and then Loretta's got, how can you be sure there'll be growth? So just going back to honest and helpful, and also about being authentic, I think this is a really important thing. I know for me, I really struggle with being authentic in terms of, I know that when I'm hurting or I'm going through change, that sometimes the thoughts that I have aren't very nice. And it's quite challenging to have the courage to say that out loud to somebody. I have found journaling it and being honest with myself about how angry I am or how peed off I am with something or someone or situation. But the reason I don't like saying it out loud is because I don't want anyone to hold on to it, because it's a moment in the process. It's not, it might be how I feel about something or someone for a moment, but almost as soon as I've said it, it's gone. So it's really important to me when I'm being that authentic, that true, that real, that I'm with somebody who can let it go and not hold on to it. And so how can you be sure there'll be growth? I guess, that'd be a great thing to finish today's live on, is anybody else who's gone through change. I guess it's because it's a growth mindset I have, Loretta. But if anybody else has got any experience, we've got other people on live today. Please share your experience, change for you, and, has there been change where there's been no growth? And I guess, my attitude is that it's probably a growth mindset thing, Loretta, where I choose to look for the lesson in it. So even when things go really wrong and they're not how I want them to be, my attitude and mindset is, my growth mindset is that I'll go, what worked about it? And even if, I think it's, is it Edison, the guy that did the light bulbs? He did 2,000 light bulbs that didn't work before he got one that worked. I think Richard Branson talked about, as an entrepreneur, he made 200 mistakes before he got it right. I guess I just accept that not getting things right is part of the process. And that once I've learned what doesn't work, as long as I embed it and embrace it and actually really make sure I remember that doesn't work, then I reduce the chances. I don't say I ever get rid of it completely, but reduce the chances of repeating that behavior. And that's where the growth comes from, because you discover what works and what doesn't work for you. And I think we often look at change as being, expecting it always to be that it's a success story. But success and failure come together. You can't have, I don't believe you can have success without failure, because if you're already successful in something, you'd already be achieving it. And if you want to go from where you are now to be successful in something or have that success, you're probably going to have to experiment. You're going to have to try new things. You have to learn. And you'd be very lucky if the very first thing you tried, whether it's trying out coaching or trying out counselling or trying out talking to a friend or, learning to do jewelry making, you'd be very lucky if the very first thing you did it without any mistakes. So when we make mistakes, in fact, there was a podcast I listened to, is we learn more from our mistakes than our successes. Partly because our system remembers them better. Whereas actually, if we look back on the things that worked really well and went well, we get growth from that, so we can do more of the stuff that works well. But also if we model out what happened when it didn't work, we get understanding and growth and learning from that, which informs our decisions going forward. So it's a bit of a long answer to that thing. I think I need to be more courageous. Pardon me. I didn't mean to burp on the video. If only I could edit it. We're live. I can't. So when you think you need to be more courageous, my thing would be go through so what kind of courageous? Go and look it up in the dictionary. Where is courageous? Is it inside or is it outside? Where does courageous come from? So the first thing you can do is get clarity of what courageous is. And when you need to be a bit more courageous, there's an inference in there that you have got some courageous already. You just need a bit more of it. So you could work out what kind of courageous you have right now. And when you're a bit more courageous, what kind of courageous is that? And what happens in between? And be curious about it. And then think about how you need to be, in order to be courageous. And what kind of resources and support might you need? But you could also even go back as well. When you are courageous, what's the impact? Then what happens? How's it going to impact you, your life, and if you're not courageous, that's another thing to look at. What's the impact? And I think courage is a big word, and I know the courage it takes to ask for help. I know the courage it asks to go for coaching, etc. So I'm going to leave you. We've got a bit longer than normal. Thank you so much for joining us live. It really does make my day when I've got someone to talk to and actually can engage with me, because I had to have a bit of courage to come on today, because I got to my sheet of where I normally write down what I'm going to talk about and I had nothing. I had nothing there. I didn't know what I was going to talk about today at all. So thank you, gorgeous souls, for joining me live. Thank you for engaging with me, because you made the process easier by having your feedback and your contributions. Lots of love. Have a fantastic week, and I will continue the theme of courageous this week in the request from Loretta in my posts, both on LinkedIn. So please follow me. And if anybody else has got anything else, any other subjects you want me to cover, then please send them to me. Not only will I be helping you, but you'll be helping me, because I'll get some ideas of what to talk about in the future. Have a great week, everybody. Speak to you soon.